not comment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to extraordinary meeting, which is number 4545 of Hunters Hill Council. Can I ask you all, please, to be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge and show my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to the Wallamadigal people on which this meeting takes place. I'll now hand to the General Manager to do the prayer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace, diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. We have no apologies for tonight's meeting. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on council's websites. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending council meetings may have their image, voice and personal information, including their name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party, members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we have 3 items to discuss tonight. We haven't had time from the last ordinary meeting to get the minutes to you this evening, so we'll be giving the minutes to the next ordinary council meeting of both the last ordinary meeting and this extraordinary meeting. Can I just call for declarations of interest? There being none, we will move to council reports. Item 1.1, Draft Community Strategic Plan, Delivery Program and Operational Plan. Councillors, do I have a mover? Moved, Councillor Tanous Sleeman. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Deputy Mayor Prieston. Is there any discussion? Councillor Tanous Sleeman. Do you wish to speak to it? No. No. Councillors, any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Lane?
Yes, I've sent everyone round a list of amendments which I'd like to propose that are added to the motion.
Added to this motion tonight?
Yes.
Yes. Are you moving that as an amendment, or are you foreshadowing?
I'm moving it as an amendment if it's accepted by the
just in the interests of time, this matter is in draft, going out to the public. It will come back to council for adoption. Do you think that it might be better to include those during the period of exhibition?
No.
Or would you prefer to debate them tonight?
I prefer that they were put into the motion. I've split them into items that should be corrected before exhibition and items that can be looked at during exhibition to facilitate that process. Given that this is the first time that we've seen any of these documents and we haven't seen the budget previously, I think it's imperative that we get it right. It's our primary statutory duty that we get the IPNR correct. So I don't want to go out on exhibition.
So we won't move into debate yet, Councillor Lane. Do you want to just pull up you've sent this through?
Yes.
Yes. Could we pull that up on the screen? Sorry, is that amendment seconded?
Yes.
Councillor Williams, seconded. Thank you. So the proposed amendment is that prior to the exhibition, amend the CSP as follows. I haven't had time to read through this. When was it sent through, councillor? Looks quite long.
Yeah, it was sent through at lunchtime.
Okay.
1:35 p.m.
Allows us precisely half a day of the 3 days that we had to review it in order to respond.
Last Monday.
Would you like me to talk?
No, I wouldn't. No, I'm just considering what's on the screen. Councillors, I'm just going to give you all a minute to digest the amendment, if possible. How many pages is this?
2. No, that's the second motion. Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. 2 and a bit.
Spots back from myself.
I couldn't see your comment.
Sorry,
on
councillor
my phone.
Preston, you got a question?
Yes. Are we
I'm
able?
just getting some printed out now.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Circulation.
I have a question.
Yes, councillor Sleeman.
Councillor Lane, can I just ask, if you don't mind, just a point of clarification on, 0.5?
Yep.
Under, yeah, 0.5, where prior to submitting the DP note, council to review the specific plan of the DP.
Yep.
You've had a couple of words, all that applying or failing to arrive at this, using the benchmark rates in the loss plan asset management plan 2025. Those rates that you've stated,
Yes.
they're as per the benchmark. Is that your recommendation?
They're as per the MOS plan,
Yeah.
which is this document here. So I've just summarised the relevant ones because it's obviously quite a large document,
Okay.
particularly if we want to refer to it. So, for example, we quote $2,000 for a concrete pram ramp. It's $700 in Mossman. I think it's important because it goes to the long-term financial sustainability of council, which is projected to fall further into the red.
Is there
with
any
current
reason
rates.
why, do you know, I mean, looking after council, why we're so out among others to the benchmarks?
Well, you and I have both asked that question a few times to the previous general manager, but no.
Okay,
Um,
wasn't being facetious. Like
Sorry.
No.
Councillors, this is not a discussion. Councillor Sleeman, if you do have a question about the benchmarks, you can ask the staff.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, we've got a question to ask through me to the staff. Yeah.
Okay, through you, Mayor. The benchmarks that have been recommended through this, changed motion, is there a particular reason why they're outside of what we recommended to the benchmarks that Councillor Lane has recommended to change?
General Manager.
Yeah. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I haven't looked at this in depth because we've got it this afternoon, I believe that we are comparing apples with oranges, and I do think that if you and I really need to scrutinise the MOS plan review, but our rates compare to the NESROC councils. Mossman is a NESROC council, and it is likely that if you add up certain elements, that pram ramp would end up costing more in Mossman Council or another council. It's sometimes the fees and charges are expressed differently for different councils, and those rates may not be comparable.
So this is benchmarked off the NESROC rates. Okay.
Generally
Good.
speaking.
Yes, thank you. Councillors, do you feel like you've digested these proposed amendments?
Just
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just be keen to know the general manager's thoughts. I know he did
Yes.
have comments, but
Yes, General Manager.
my phone.
Look, I've made comments along the way. It's just like this printouts come out. I should have had those ready. I apologise. There's page 23, the vision. We've had no issues with addition of those additional words. Same with the next one, restore levels of service. I think we're just talking words in these areas, but the next one, community belonging. I think those wordings actually included within that section, but if you want to add it, you can. Again, with the next item, I believe it's included in the first dot point of that section under community belonging. Character, heritage and places, I don't believe that splitting up is necessary, but I have no issue if council wants to accept that. For exhibition, governance and participation, I'm not sure that the words innovative with replacing with collaborative actually adds any strength to the document, but it's up to council to.
Perhaps.
Sorry,
Perhaps if I could
so
talk to
councillor
the
Lane,
amendment, it
you,
would
you
help.
can't talk to the amendment because the general manager is answering a question from the deputy mayor. Please, general manager.
So, next one's restore, communities aware of decisions through transparent democratic processes. Again, I believe point one covers this. During exhibition of the CSP council review, those, 18, page 18, sustainable development goals, have no issue with that if council accepts that. The next one, I think all those items should be deferred and just looked at during the exhibition period and added in at the end if we come to agreement
Yes,
on that. And local LSP, in relation to that, we're about to review the LSP as required by the Office of Local Government. And I think that would be covered during that process. I don't think we need to make any changes at the moment. Next one, the PAMP and the bike plan. I think there's enough work happening on those plans that we're going to be reporting back on those. So you can add some more words, but I think we'll be reporting on them quite substantially over the next 12 months. The next one, base allocation to the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainability. All those things are included throughout the plan. I don't think we need to do any more in that area. What about appeals? Number of appeals, no issue. Council wants to accept that. We would probably add that to one of the, once every 6 months to the legal report we do to council. The one about replace or up to date in 4.2.1, less than 5 years old. I think better wording would be to make sure we review all policies reviewed every 5 years. And we do have some requirements under the Act to review all our general policies within each term of council. But this is, I think, it's more around the planning policies. The next one where they want to replace the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainability. I actually think both directors should be tasked with that item. 4.33, we're going to measure the number of parks with a 10-minute walks or people with a 10-minute walk of playgrounds. I don't think that would actually change in 4 years given the cost of land acquisition, and I think satisfaction is a better measure. 5.1.1 summaries, no more than 4 pages long. I'm not certain if we're talking about just council-led items or applications such as planning proposals, but I'm not sure how we're going to resource that. I don't support that. We do try to do summaries where appropriate. And having the new 5.41 section, I believe that really should be a notice of motion. We do currently use the IAP2 for our engagement, and I think we're going to move away from that. We should have a debate and a workshop on that as well. And that's the next one about a background paper along with each draft policy. Again, that's very time consuming. It shouldn't apply to all council activities, and I don't support that. I believe that's probably should be a notice of motion. In the area of these square metre rates, I think we're talking 2 different items. I think one's the square metre rate for bulk works, and we've got a rate for individual one-off if someone's paying for it, which is tends to be more expensive, which you've got to get. It's not part of a big quotation to get a lot of work done. So that's my comments.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there anything in there that can't be amended when it comes back to council after consultation's been held?
So.
No. And is there anything in there that you believe materially changes a component of the CSP, the intent of the CSP?
No. I think it's just going to add layers of reporting, which I'm not certain is getting the job done.
Councillors, have you, or do you feel like you've had time to digest this amendment and the 3 pages of amendment? Yes? No? Yes? Comfortable that you've had consideration? Councillor Lane, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes.
To the amendment, sorry.
Look, I appreciate it was only half a day, but like I said, we've only had 3 days for the entire IPNR. I'm very concerned that we've been asked to pass this document without having had the budget workshop that we were talked about when we had the original ideas session, and without having had the information session that we were supposed to have after that original session to digest this. I think an ordinary council would probably defer this so that we could have this discussion, but in the spirit of working with you, I think that we can amend to make it the minimum viable product that can go onto exhibition. I think that in terms of the rates, to start at the back, our long-term financial position at the very back of the document is quite dire. It actually worsens so that by 10 years, I think we're down to a deficit of, what is it, 2.8?
What page are you looking?
Page 278. So you'll see the operating result from continuing operations falls into deficit in year 3 and then continues to worsen to year 10. If you take out grants, it is negative from year 1 and at minus $1 million and becomes minus 3.6 in year 10. So if we're setting a 10-year, 4-year and 1-year plan, then having a strategy to reduce our costs is paramount. One of our primary costs is $3.5 million a year that we spend on roads. It was of such concern that both Councillor Tanner-Sleeman and I met several times with the previous General Manager to discuss it. And I agree with the General Manager, this is something that should be discussed offline. But with respect, we tried to do that several times already, and we don't seem to have in this document any reflection of those conversations. In terms of whether or not the unit costs are reflective, I've also looked at the Transport for New South Wales rates, and in some cases Rawlinson's, although that doesn't usually cover public works. And even for bulk works, we're above the standard rate. So for example, when we listed under the road renewal program, footpath renewal, we were going to spend $221,000 on 53 metres of footpath, or being generous, let's say 53 metres on both sides of the road. That's $2,000 a linear metre that we're spending on a footpath. We're spending $1,400 a linear metre on roads, $1,475 for the next item. These are well above the rates that other councils enjoy. And even if we couldn't achieve it in year 1, I would expect the 4-year delivery program, as some other councils have done, would have these figures trending down to an average. And so what I've recommended here is that we just do a review of the surrounding LGAs to arrive at a rate. And I've proposed the Mossman rates really as a fail-safe if we don't get that. But I personally think that given that this is our primary task, we shouldn't just let these prices go through to the keeper without a more rigorous review. And I, in the absence of the budget workshop, I agree it should be workshop, but this is what we have, so it needs to be done now. In terms of just going to some of the more esoteric, perhaps, items like the vision, priorities, and themes, like I agree that these are just words, perhaps. But for example, when I said to restore the community is aware of decisions through a transparent and democratic process, which has been dropped out of governance and participation, councillors would be aware that almost all of the motions that come to council are reported under that objective. So it's not a minor thing to drop it, because at the moment, almost everything that we do is about transparency in the democratic process, which is quite different from saying that council, community members and local business communicate clearly about policies, decision and projects. That's not about democracy. Again, innovative solutions, that's about doing things differently as opposed to collaborative solutions. I think innovation for innovation's sake is problematic. I think that we have dropped services and activities from the document entirely. So it's really only talking to infrastructure. And that's why I think returning words like services or activities and programs are designed to be are important. And then in terms of the details in the second bullet, I agree with the General Manager. They don't have to be done before exhibition, but none of the targets really provide smart goals whatsoever. I think we shouldn't be holding ourselves to such rubbery targets as community satisfaction plans when we're talking about substantial matters such as what the level of service is on our infrastructure. And I note that, for example, we moved from walking and cycling being referenced in the document to a general one about sustainable transport options. And while I like the term sustainable transport options, we then edited out any reference to walking and cycling in the document, which is why I've recommended that we put in an additional item to bring back the PAMP and the bike plan as a minimum level. And that's why the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainability has called out for the resilience plan, because again, a subjective satisfaction survey doesn't deliver resilience. And again, I've just taken the words out of the LSPS. I think to the point around the Council's local strategic planning statement, this is a document that's been consulted with the community. We've gone through a whole process and it's been published. And just like the previous CSP, it's therefore our reference point when making amendments. It was disappointing that we weren't given a marked up copy of the previous CMP, but I would say that even without that, we should be referring to our own statutory documents before they're reviewed. And that means that if we've committed to upgrade works to Hunters Hill Town Hall, that doesn't become Hunters Hill Museum just because that sounds good. And if we are going out on exhibition, we should go out on exhibition with what we've already committed to. And if the community comes back to us and says, no, that should be a museum, that would be the point at which we should be amending, rather than proposing something that is not community-led as one of our primary major projects in the document. I won't go through everything. I think the percentage of LGAs with 10 minutes walk of a playground is different from land acquisition for public space. We have lots of public space. We just don't have many playgrounds. I've already foreshadowed to the mayor that unfortunately he'll find a bit of a dearth of playgrounds in his areas. It's something I've already raised with the Director of Sustainability. So by including a measure, we'll start to track better improved access to playgrounds, which ideally should be 200 metres, but usually 400 metres in these documents. The 4-page summary is really a key thing. We had 400 pages for the Gladesville Master Plan, which was undigestible. And that's why I put in the specific reference to the guiding principles. I've talked to this council multiple times about those and the fact that they say pretty simple things like that we should be seeing documents before a decision is made. I think this is an example with 3 days notice being given the IPNR and then 12 hours notice being given the confidential motion. We're clearly not following those basic principles of engagement. And I think that writing it into the document will help us be a little bit more disciplined. I really think that this can be a great document, and I think that a lot of work has been done to get it to the point that it is. But in the absence of more time to work on the document thoroughly in workshops, I think that if we don't make these minimum changes and any other minimal changes that the other councillors have come up with, we're going to be going out with a document which is unaffordable and doesn't reflect the existing strategic documents that we've published. So I thank you for agreeing to the amendment, or looking at the amendment for consideration.
Councillors, any speakers against the amendment? For the amendment? Councillor Williams. Sorry, Councillor Williams, you've got the
Are
call.
you speaking?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes.
Councillor Lane.
Yes.
We were just referring to the first motion, not the second. Not
That's right.
referring to the operating. Okay. Sorry.
Councillor Williams, you are speaking for the amendment?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I share those views that Councillor Lane has put on the table, but I'd start on the basis that being given 3 days to go through fundamental documents like this, I think is unacceptable. We should be able to.
Sorry, Councillor Williams, just to correct you there, this document was delivered to councillors last Monday. Electronically on Monday of last week. It was not 3 days.
Well, with all due respect, Mr Mayor, I don't look at the electronic version. I wait for the.
But you received it electronically last Monday.
Well, that's irrelevant. You can't write on an electronic version.
Yes, councillor, to say that you didn't receive it when you received it in your email inbox.
No, I did not receive it in a usable manner.
If you didn't read it, I don't think that is on the staff. You didn't read it because you didn't read your emails. That's fine, but I think the assertion that you had 3 days to read this document is incorrect.
No, well, I disagree, Mr.
Well, You can disagree all you like, those are the facts.
They're not the facts. The facts are that I received a written copy of this on 3 days.
And an email last Monday, one week ago from today.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, point of order.
I don't know which point of order, but that's not right. When you're issued with a legal document, by any means, you're said to have received that document on the day which it was delivered to you, no matter by what form.
Yes, I agree with you, Councillor. Councillor Williams, would you like to continue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm spending a lot of time going through this document, or documents in plural. I find that we have now moved to a situation. I've got dozens of questions which we could go through if you like. But I think what we've got here is a situation where we're building expectations that can't be realised in a meaningful way. For example, we talk about in the document having this museum turned into some sort of art gallery, whatever. All council has done so far is commissioned a feasibility study. To have in this document an expression to our communities that that's what you're going to deliver, I think is not correct. Likewise, with the master plan for Henley, we say in there that it doesn't qualify it on the basis that we're going to proceed with the master plan, not be able to deliver it within this period. I also have a lot of concerns about the statements in this document that we're financially sustainable. By all measures that I'm aware of, and by looking at that page which Councillor Lane referred to, we're not sustainable in our current form, and we need to take some realistic and meaningful steps to bring ourselves back into a sustainable level. And these issues about costings of different things, I think, how can we go forward with this documentation when there's uncertainty about how real the costings are within this document? I think it's important for a document of this level of detail and commitment to our community that we have the appropriate time to go through it. Even if we had from last Monday, I don't think that's adequate time. We should have had some further input during this process. I don't see anywhere in this documentation evidence of what the findings were from the community. We did a number of surveys and whatever, but I would expect to be able to see the findings of that so I can put into context what is in this document based on what the community responses. I'm just relying on what is now being put before us without knowing what the real or what the underlying themes and concerns were of the community. If we want to get down to details, we get into the back part here where we're talking about our future planning, our budgeting for the different things. I could go through those in detail if you like, but at the moment, looking at things like page 189, there's several duplications there of expenditure. Does that change the budget outcome? We have 2 entries for High Street, which are identical. We have 2 entries for Mary Street, which are identical, and they're considerable sums of funds. I would expect a document like this to be accurate because we are making decisions about how we're going to be spending our funds and money. We talk, just right through this document, these documents, like page 187, where's Milling Street in the capital works? We just allocated funds in this budget to identify what the problems are, but it's totally ignored in the further detailed works to be carried out. We have in here the Glazel amenities block for $900,000. Are we now contributing $900,000 to the project, or is that the total cost based on the grant? I I would appreciate the opportunity to sit down and go through these with staff and find out exactly where we stand on these issues. And I believe there are some inconsistencies in the documents which we have. And I've always been of the belief that council should put to the community what it intends to go forward with, not put it out to the community and say, oh, okay, we'll change things as we go through the consultation process. I think the community really deserves to know exactly what council's position is on these things, rather than, oh, okay, we may change it as we go through the process. So to me, Mr. Mayor, I don't think there's been sufficient time to work through the items in here. I think Councillor Lane has highlighted some really important issues, which, given more time, I could document a whole series of questions and issues that I have as well. So I don't think it's ready to go out to the community at this point. I think we have to at least incorporate those changes which Councillor Lane has highlighted in his amendment. But I have a whole range of issues which I would like to also have considered.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I've just got a procedural question of the General Manager. Given, as I said, and as the General Manager has stated, all of this can be amended during the process because it's in draft, it's going out for public consultation. What is the consequence of deferring this tonight?
Well, it depends, Mr. Mayor, on how long you defer it for. So the process from here is we need to get it on 28 days public exhibition. We need to then wrap up all the comments and bring it back to council and have it adopted by the 30th of June so that we can issue the rates very early in the next financial year. Otherwise, we start to cause some grief with loss of interest on investments and things like that. So
yeah, so we need to get the rates
we need to
out.
be able to hit the ground running from the 1st of July with a plan that has been adopted.
Councillor Preston, you have a question?
Can I move that the motion in the original business paper be put with the amendment of including number 5 of Councillor Lane's first proposed motion? How do I do that?
You can't at this stage because we're debating the amendment. If the amendment fails, then you can foreshadow you can either, sorry, if the amendment fails, we can take components of the amendment and debate them again, if need be. If that is something that you're wishing to do, but we have to deal with the amendment that's on the floor, and that is moved and seconded. It can't be amended again whilst we're in debate. Any speakers for the motion? Sorry, for the amendment, against the amendment? Right of reply. Councillor Lane.
Thank you. I think I just wanted to reply to this question about what we can do on exhibition and to support Ross in this. I think it's we've had this argument run on a number of different motions now, and it's our job as councillors to review and approve. You know, if you want to make the analogy, this is like a board, and we've been given next year's budget, in fact, the next 10 years budget to look at. We can't abdicate that responsibility by saying, oh, well, you know, we'll just put it out as it is. If we can see things that need fixing, we need to fix it now. And I think that's a general principle that we should be adopting for all motions. Like I said, if we want these things to pass, we should give them the best possible chance of getting community support. So if there are things in there that are wrong or that are unlikely to be accepted in their current form, I think we should be amending them now rather than waiting for people to jump up and down about them. And so I would recommend that, to the extent that we're talking about things like restoring items that have been dropped from the strategic objectives, that if those are things that we think are important and in fact are part of our previous strategic plans, that we shouldn't just be putting it off to a later point. So I'd urge everyone to work on this to get it as good as possible, and I appreciate the engagement to that.
Thank you, councillor Lane. Sorry, the mover of the amendments have spoken, so I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. We're back to the original motion in the paper. Has been moved and seconded. Councillor Prieston, you have a question?
Can I please make an amendment to the existing?
You can make an amendment, or if you wish to, given you are the seconder, and councillor Tannous-Sleeman was the mover, you don't need to foreshadow. You can suggest an amendment to the motion that you put, and that might be accepted potentially by councillor Tannous-Sleeman. And if it is, that then becomes the motion.
Okay, I'm thinking on the fly, but I'd like to propose that in between the current recommendation 1 and 2, we recommend that prior to the placement of the community strategic plan, delivery program and operational plan on public exhibition, council ensures.
Sorry, councillor, we're going to have to pull this up if it's going to be. That amendment fails, and then councillor Prieston is going to word very eloquently her proposed amendment, which may be
Sorry
accepted
for
into the
doing this
motion.
on the fly. Just in light of the discussion around the table.
Can I ask questions?
Yes, Councillor Williams.
If a motion or an amendment's been lost,
Yes.
I don't believe you can now incorporate that or part of that amendment
I'm not.
within the existing.
I did not hear that was what
No,
councillor.
but I'm just asking.
Yes. I don't believe that's what councillor Preston's doing, but given that we haven't heard her amendment, I can't speak to that. Okay, councillor Preston. Councillor Preston, in between 2 and 3, you wanted to incorporate that.
Yes, please. In between 1 and 2.
Between 1 and 2. Yep.
Yeah. Prior to the placement of the CSP delivery program and operational plan on public exhibition, council reviews the documents to ensure that council's strategic objectives have all been captured. Including projects that council has previously committed to. And then, yeah, so if you just after ensure that council's, instead of strategic objectives there, could be right. Yeah, that council's LCSP objective has been captured. Yeah.
Objectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
LCSP objectives have been captured. And another maybe so if this is the new 2, could we please put a semicolon after public exhibition and have this one that we've just typed out as a subclause A, and then have a subclause B following. Thank you. And an and in between. ensure, sorry, council ensures, sorry. Benchmark rates detailed in the sections financing the DP and detailed capital works are in line with market.
Perhaps in line with NESROC. But
Yeah,
it has to be. I would say it'd have to be comparable to our
in line with
source.
NESROC, with comparable NESROC rates.
NESROC benchmark rates.
Yeah. NESROC benchmark rates. So are in line with comparable NESROC benchmark rates.
Get rid of NESROC with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, I might just change A to say council staff review.
Yes.
And B, council staff ensure.
Yep. Councillor Tanus Lehman, are you comfortable with that amendment?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Like Sam, I'm concerned that I'm just getting potentially mixed messages. I'm by the way, I'm agreeable to most of what Councillor Preston has put through, but we've got a document here through the MOS plan that's got some rates in there, and I understand and respect you said it's not apples to oranges. So, in what we've proposed in the terminology, are we going to be able to say it is comparable? Do we really?
Councillor, can I just suggest that the problem might be that the rates that Mossman might have in there are incorrect, might be incorrect. We don't know that. That's one council with a comparable. And the director can answer this, but if this is benchmarked off of NESROC, our immediate neighbours, I would trust that far more than I would a single set of data nitpicked from one council.
Okay.
But I'll let the director answer.
If that's the case, if that's the case, do we have access to the benchmark that we're looking at the NASROC?
Yes. For you, Mr. Mayor, generally what's done when looking at schedules of fees and charges, you look at other councils' rates. The way other councils articulate them in their fees and charges may be different, and that's why I was saying apples and oranges. But there are ways that we can look at them. So, for instance, saw cutting versus asphalt, some of them are combined, so it's a different rate, and so we can do that mathematics, and to be honest, we have, but we can double check and make sure that we are comparable with all councils. And if there's a question, we can ring those councils and ask them.
So I understand what you're saying. I don't know if to answer my concern. That is, I just want to be able to say objectively, is there a report to go to? Or again, we do salary benchmarking, there's 3 or 4 leading companies that give us those reports. Is there some kind of appendix that you'll be able to give us access to, just so that we can have a look at it? And sure, if there's the devil in the detail, if we want to look further, we can. Purely just out of curiosity,
Yes, councillors, we will be able to do that. If we haven't got a document, we'll source it from each individual council. We've got plenty of contacts there, and we'll also provide written advice on what each one means. Because at the moment, I believe we're not, as the director said earlier, we're not comparing apples. But we'll come back to you with all the information. So, because I want to know as well, if we're not benchmarking why. But don't forget, we've got issues around, if you do a footpath and we've got sandstone curb, it's going to cost us more to do that footpath.
That's correct.
I mean, I remember last time I was here having to rip out footpaths because overran the sandstone with the bitumen. And so there's different ways we have to build things. So there's quite often there's reasons for this as well. And we'll have to bring you back. If we are a long way out on a benchmark, we have to tell you why we're a long way out on the benchmark. And that's what we'll be able to do. We shouldn't just go and adopt someone else's figures, because there's a lot of things in Hunter's Hill that are different compared to everyone else. And every other council's different. If you were doing the Chatswood CBD, your cost structure would be completely different to what ours would be. So we just need to be able to explain that to you.
And I would say, I'm just on that, my questions to the second to the budget are actually all about some comparable numbers. So,
Councillor, is there a question in here, or is there no question? Okay. Well, when you speak to the motion, you'll be able to, Councillor, you'll be able to speak to the motion. Otherwise, questions? Councillor.
Just one further amendment with Councillor Tanu-Sleeman.
Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, can I just ask if you're comfortable with the amendment as put
I'm comfortable.
by Councillor Preston?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
the tidy up amendment is what I'd like to.
Yes, you can further amend that. So you've accepted the amendments of part 2A and B as articulated by Councillor Preston. Yes, Councillor Preston.
Just at 3, the new point 3, following this review, comma, and then just the rest of 3 as written.
That's it?
Yep.
Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, do you accept that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, that has become the motion. Councillors, any further discussion?
Yes, well, just.
Councillor, you're speaking for the motion?
If we're still in amendment territory.
We aren't. But you can propose an amendment if you'd
Okay.
like.
I'd like to propose a further amendment.
Yes.
Just to address Councillor Tanu-Sleeman's concerns, is it possible at the end of, if we go back up B, we just add and provide a report to council at the end of B?
I think
Is that
we don't need it. Can I?
sorry? So is the mover and seconder accepting of that?
No, because.
No. Okay. Councillor Lane, do you wish to move that as a further amendment?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, the general manager would like to make a comment.
Have to do this work within the next 48 hours, or less, because we've got to get this document out. We will circulate an email to everyone to explain where we've got to and what we've put into the document. It won't be a further report to council, because that's not happening until the end of the month, and we can't wait that long.
Okay. So if you're effectively undertaking to give it to us in 48 hours, great.
We want to know the information. We'll circulate it around. There's nothing to hide here. Let's get it right and get it out to you, the information. But I want this document out on public exhibition by the end of the week. That gives us plenty of time to get the feedback and actually have some conversations around any feedback we get before we put it back up to council for adoption. But otherwise, in the past, we've had a day or two to deal with the feedback, and that's not what we want. We want a good couple of weeks to be able to circulate the feedback, and then if we need to have workshops or whatever before you do your final adoption, we can do that.
Councillor Lane, are you proceeding with your amendment? Withdrawn. Thank you. Councillors, any further discussion on this? If not, Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, right to reply? No, not needed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams. We now move to item 1.2, the draft 2025-26 budget, including long-term financial plan and fees and charges. Councillors, is there a mover? Moved. Councillor Preston, seconded. Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. Councillor Preston, do you wish to discuss the motion? No. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Lane.
I'd like to discuss an amendment. I've forwarded an amendment to council, but in light of the previous conversation, I'll abridge it slightly.
Councillor, you'd like to move an amendment? You may. Just, if it is abridged, I'll just pull that up.
And the abridged version would be where it says road and footpath opening and restoration. If you delete everything after the bold and just say, or all rates to reflect, and then delete from prevailing onwards. Yeah, so leave the first four, and then from prevailing to the bottom, if you just replace that with to reflect the delivery plan. And so the word prevailing at the end of the first sentence.
I'll just end that there.
Yeah, just delete from there.
From there, okay.
Yep. And then instead of prevailing, if it just reads,
Sorry, councillor, does this become motions 4 and 5, or 4, or what's 1.1?
this is 1.2 now we're on.
1.2 is the item we're discussing.
Yes.
You're proposing a amendment to the motion. Is this proposed to become 4.4 in the motion?
Sure.
Or is this?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't numbering in. If you say it would be 4,
It would be after motions 1, 2 and 3 in the recommendation. This would have to become 0.4. Is that correct?
Thank you. It should be before 2, actually, if it's prior to exhibition.
So this becomes 0.2.
Can I make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, can I just let's just get the motion correct. Well, General Manager, yep.
So I think what we're saying is item 2, A, draft operational budget fees and charges for 2025-26. They're going on exhibition and will reflect the roads and footpath opening and restoration charges that are benchmarked in the delivery plan.
Yeah, that's half of it, and the other half is just the subpoena rates.
I don't agree with that one, so I didn't want to give you a heads up on that.
I can talk to that though.
Yeah. Thanks.
So sorry, councillors, we're going to have to. So 0.2 becomes a council place on public. To 0.3. Sorry.
I think it needs to be a bit further.
They need to be slotted in under 2A because we're placing the budget and fees and charges, and with those amendments.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you'd like to place it under 2A, that's fine. So it would be 2A, and it would just be and as amended. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to get this correct before we start the debate.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Just one.
Okay, so sorry, councillor, let me just, so is that reflective? The 2A is amended to council place on public exhibition, then B, draft operational budget fees, charges for 25-26. Sorry, you lost me. Noting the following alterations, that the subpoena rate, $55 for both, no, so if we leave that. $55 for both financial years and processing per hour at $30, and that the roads and footpaths operating and restoration rates reflect prevailing rates detailed in the delivery plan, and then the rest on as per the motion.
That's right.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that seconded?
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor Williams. Councillor Lane, would you wish to speak to that?
Yes.
Yes.
the road and footpath component is self-explanatory. The GIPA Act requires us not to put any unreasonable barriers on access to information. I think in this case, a $250 an hour processing fee in particular is a significant cost impost. So I've looked at the rates that are being charged by the state government, which are the $55 and $30 an hour, and I think that's a more reasonable reflection of the balance between providing information and covering our costs.
Thank you, councillors. I'm just going to I've got a question on that subpoena rate. Is that going to be of marked financial impact to us? Because I mean, we're not the state government. We don't have a large public sector to deal with these sorts of things. Could I just get some reflections from the general manager to reduce the rate from $250 to $30? I would imagine is going to become a material line item. How much of this do we do?
Councillors, not a lot. I should introduce you to our new financial controller, Christian Mende, who can look at this for us today. Christian, do you want to make a comment on this item regarding the subpoena, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So it's not a material income item for us, but the current rate is indicative of the costs that we bear. We can't realise the economies of scale of the state government, and often the executive is getting involved in these requests for information. So I think that the current fee is reflective of the cost to council.
Thank you. Ms. Goodman would also like to make a comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So our subpoena rate is actually benchmark. So our processing fee is $248.50 for that. Our neighbours across the way at Wallara Council, which we often use as a benchmark council, charge $267.50. So the state government actually have a processing fee, etc. That's related to their clerical officers, but that money increases up to $500 depending on who's actually processing the subpoena. We do likewise. For example, if we have to get legal oversight on any subpoenas that come our way, we obviously have a charge for that as well, which is quite substantive for this council. Often also we have 1 to 3 council officers having to stop their jobs and come away to do the subpoena in less than 14 days, which is an impost on our community. So we have looked at these fees over the last 2 years and are very comfortable with a processing rate of around $250. I would be reticent to actually reduce that rate any further, but once again, it's on council's onus to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodman. Sorry, Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. Question?
I do have a question.
Sorry, I will get to you, Councillor Vergara. Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've got about 8 questions relating to the budget in terms of comparables.
Yes.
Is it something I should leave after Mark Lane, Councillor Mark Lane's?
Is it pertaining to this amendment or to the budget itself?
To the budget.
No, well, once we've dealt with this amendment, we'll go back into debate about the budget itself. Councillor
My question relates
Vergara.
So does the subpoena rate apply to GIPPers? No, so they're different, right? So a subpoena is inter partes legal proceeding. The Civil Procedure Act provides your right to get your reasonable costs. You've got your financial person telling you what your reasonable costs are. Makes sense, so I wouldn't support that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any further discussion on the amendment? Right of reply, Councillor?
In light of the further information, I'd be happy to remove the subpoena component and just leave the footpaths and opening.
Seconder, are you comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yes, so that has been amended. So the only amendment is roads and footpaths opening and restoration, all rates to reflect prevailing rates detailed in the delivery plan. Councillors, any further? Sorry, Councillor Vergara.
So just on the way to sort of in the delivery plan, that means the delivery plan as amended post your review, right? Okay.
Yes. Councillors, any further discussion? If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. That has become the motion. We move back into debate on the budget. Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, you have a litany of questions.
My first question is regarding income from continuing operations. I have a question regarding the grant contributions provided for capital purposes. And I noticed a decline. I wanted to sort of probably understand if there is further explanation to that. And my second question is, under other revenues, it says there's a decrease in sponsorship income for the Mukabulla Festival Art Festival of 16K. Just wanted clarification, why? That's my first question.
The director can answer. Sorry. This is the new financial controller.
Just
for all
page the
councils.
grant number.
Oh, sorry, sure, 19.
19
Three.
of the written document. This was.
I would hazard a guess, although I'll pass to the financial controller. A lot of those grant acquittals would have been relating to either Boronia Park, the delivery of Boronia Park, or the delivery of Fig Tree Park, which happened in the last financial year. So that there was obviously substantial grant revenue for acquittal of those projects, and then I would imagine without new grant opportunities at scale, that will probably continue to drop off. Sorry, councillor, I will just allow, I'll allow the director to answer, and then the financial controller.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's
Yes.
exactly right. Fig Tree Park and Boronia weren't acquitted last at the beginning of this financial year, but they so that's hence the reductions in grant funding. They were two huge projects, and so therefore the grants we've got underfoot now are substantially less.
Sorry,
My second
councillor Prieston, have you got a burning question about that specifically?
Is that not a question about Mukabulla?
Oh, and there's
Yes, and that's it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the first.
No, there's a question about the grant funding dropping off, and the second part was about the loss of revenue from the sponsorship at Mukabulla.
Yeah.
Again, I'd imagine that is because we had a major corporate sponsor that is not guaranteed to come in this year again, but I'll let the
councillors, through Mr Mayor, I met with the major corporate sponsor this last week, and we very keen to be back on board again. They will also look at providing some activities on site on the day, which is actually a good way for us to get additional things without having to pay for them. It's really the small sponsors that are more difficult to get, and that's caused us some problems for this year's program. But yeah, we will keep trying, but we just want to reflect some reality into the figures. But as I say, there will be a bit of offset through some of the activities that major sponsors looking at doing a couple of things which will help us out a little bit more than just their $12,500 sponsorship. We are asking them for a little bit more, but not sure we'll get that.
councillor Denise Lehman,
Yes,
another
second
question.
Under page 202, under preliminary development application, I just want to again, through you, Mr Mayor, understand the costs, and there's obviously an increase to the fees that are being proposed. There's obviously an increase. Also, there's an increase to page 242 under charges of domestic and commercial waste services. Again, there appears to be an increase. My question is, how do these rates, both the increase and the current rates, compare to a comparable to Ryde Council, Wallara Council, or North Sydney Council?
General Manager.
I have to take that on notice, Mr Mayor, but I think our charge is actually reasonably good in comparison. But I'm happy to bring you back some figures and just compare the various garbage services. They're sometimes a bit hard to compare because some costs are sort of within rates and some are in garbage. We've got all ours in the garbage, so but I'm happy to bring you back like the NESROC benchmark if you like.
My next question, I'm hoping it's apples to apples, no apples to bananas or oranges, is on page 216. Building information certificate, class 2-9. There's a fee of $2,043. In addition to that, apparently we also require our residents to then get an OC on top of that, which I believe no other council does. And I don't know if I'm comparing apples to apples. So through you, Mr Mayor, It appears that Ryde Council, Mosman Council charged $250 for a building information certificate class 2-9. Is there a reason why we're charging $4,003?
Sorry, I might, the director's up the back, so I might get him to.
Through you, Mayor, those figures, depending on the class and the type, the building information certificates go on the cost of work. So if the cost of works are large, the fee goes up. So it's all relative.
So it should.
And the occupation certificate is a standard fee, and it's needed in a paid project, and we get part of those fees as well.
That's, I believe that's two OCs that are required. And secondly, if that's the case, it's a flat fee, it states as a $4,043 fee, so how are they proportionate to the cost of works?
No, the building information certificate goes to the cost of works for an illegal works. If you're just asking for a building information certificate.
No, illegal works, sorry, I'm referring to.
For a standard one, there's a standard fee. For illegal works, it goes on the cost of the fees, that's why those fees go way up.
I'm comfortable with that, but yeah, illegal works I'm referring to, we charge $4,043.
Yeah.
Ryde Council will charge $250.
No, you don't. Authorised is,
4,000.
no,
Sorry, councillor, which page are you on?
216.
216.
Put it back to the cost of works and of the act. So there
Can we
is.
take that on notice, council?
Councillor, can we take that on notice? That's,
And
Yes.
council will compare and come back.
Two last questions.
yes, councillor?
Councillor Williams, don't get upset, but can I understand, under the Huntersville Art Exhibition, page 226, every other area of our budget, there's an increase. There appears to be no increases in the fees to the Huntersville Art Exhibition. Is there a particular reason why we haven't incurred an increase?
Councillor, we try and run that event at cost as much as possible. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure it's a big earner for us, but I'll ask the general manager.
Look, council, I'd have to take that one on board. I haven't looked at that yet, and we haven't had an art exhibition since I've been here, so, we,
Just appears that everything's had an increase, except that of an increase.
Income come from the commission.
so I think that a lot of our income actually comes from that commission as well, so, but yeah, we can have a look at that. It just depends how much we want to charge artists, I suppose.
Councillor, have you got another question?
It's the last question. Under employee costs and benefits and on costs, page 265, have we potentially looked at accommodating a ranger, a tree ranger that we've discussed in our wages, urban forests,
General manager?
No, we haven't.
power ranger, tree ranger?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't at this stage. That as of last meeting, we'll come back with a business plan and a budget to see how it could be funded. So it's not included in here.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, any discussion regarding the motion on the floor? If not, councillor Williams.
Yes, I have a few questions as well. Page 193 as was raised before. We talk about net gains from disposal of assets, and it says here that in this year's revised we've gained $1.5 million, and we're proposing to get 2.628 in this forthcoming financial year.
Councillor, sorry, what page are you on?
193.
193.
It's a table there that
Yeah.
refers to net gains from disposal of assets. I was just wondering what assets we've disposed of to achieve that $2.5 million.
Councillors, there will be, through you, Mr. Mayor, there will be a revision to that figure for the March review. The 2.5 for the financial year 24-25 won't be achieved. It was in relation to the sale of land in Vernon Street. I think it's Vernon, isn't it? Right. And there will be a confidential report coming to the next meeting of council to explain next steps in relation to that, and that matter's being pushed forward to the next year's budget. We can't change those figures because they're the actual adopted figures for council at the moment, as of
Right, so we're not going to realise that this
Not
year,
the 2.5 this year.
but will it be realised next year? Is that what you're saying in the 2.6 million?
Well, whoever's the general manager will be working very hard to make sure it is.
Okay, just a minor thing on page 195, you just need dollar signs in front of the numbers at the top of the page.
I'm sure that we can amend that, councillor. Thank you.
Yeah. The substantive issue I raised in the previous debate, and that's about council's financial sustainability. And it was a question I put to the auditor when he was here as to what is the true measure of sustainability financially for council. And he was.
Sorry, councillor, you speaking to the motion or you got a question?
I'm speaking to the motion.
Speaking to the motion, okay. Speaking in favour of the motion?
So I guess so.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we talk about on page, let me find it. Somewhere here, we talk about post-it notes there. Anyway, yeah, here we are on page 253. We talk about the principles of sustainability from a financial management point of view. And we highlight in one, council should achieve a fully funded operating position reflecting the council collects enough revenue to fund the operational expenditure and repay any debts and whatever. Now, to me, and from the advice we got from the auditor when he was here, the bottom line for council sustainability is based on net operating result before capital items. And if you look at that, it's negative all the way through. And even on the one above, operating result from, this is on page 278, expenses, operating result from continuing operations. The next 2 years it's positive, but then it goes negative in the long-term operational plan quite considerably over the remaining period of those 10 years. So we state quite often in our documentation that we're financially sustainable, but this document to me tells another story. So I'm not happy with the way that this document is presented and its relationship to the previous item that we dealt with here tonight. Because I don't think that tells me that we are sustainable financially.
Thank you, councillor. Looking forward to your suggestions about how we can save or make money. Councillors, any further discussion on the item? Speakers for, against? If not, Councillor Prieston, right of reply?
No, thank you.
No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the council reports in open session. Any other items of general business before we move into confidential? If not, I'll need a motion to move into confidential session. Moved Councillor Kassab, seconded Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I'll ask the gallery to empty. I'm sorry for